Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Unfiltered with Bob Z. And today we have a very, very special guest in the house. Gentleman that we have here today is, I guess, one of the, I want to try to label him, but I just want to let you know that I'm very, very, I've been knowing this guy. He is like one of the most knowledgeable people about the affairs of not just the city of Norfolk, but I mean, he's like a walking historian. And for me, I mean, I really like the history of the area and particularly the history, the African-American history that this area is rich in. And this guy, he is really, really an encyclopedia of terms and people, and he prides himself on it. So I'm here with Rodney Jordan. He's the current vice chair of the school board for the City of Norfolk. And welcome, Rodney. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me, and glad to see what you're doing, and wish you all the success in the world.
Well, thank you. I mean, Rodney, go back a little ways, and we always, discuss and debate and everything. But that's what people should do. I think people should have a dialogue, and whether they agree or not, but it's always an open dialogue. And I want to thank him for coming up to the show. And at first, I know he's the chair of the school board, so I was like, well,
Chair.
Oh, well, excuse me, vice chair.
Yeah,
sorry.
vice chair, that's
okay,
right.
Okay, maybe it's wishful thinking.
Maybe for you.
Well, yeah, I don't think I'm alone, but, but I wanted to stay within education, but it's so Rodney's just a wealth of knowledge, and so sometimes, we get off, and we may do that, get off on a little tangent today, but my first question is dealing with the, some school issues. How do you feel about the students not being able to return to face-to-face instruction this fall? I know you were the lone dissenting vote on the school board, and I was like, well, if Rodney did it, it must be. I want to know. I wasn't just going to take it at face value.
So first of all, let me say, I support the decision that the board made, and it wasn't so much that I was a dissenting vote as much as in talking to parents, in doing my own research, and looking at some of the realities, what I thought we should be including on day one was an opportunity for some students who needed it to be able to have some in-person instruction to the extent that we could provide that in a safe environment. So today we find that a lot of school divisions around the Commonwealth and around the country are providing daycare. They're providing learning hubs. You find students going to the Y. They're going to somebody's house. So I felt that the school system could provide some of those same opportunities in a limited, safe area right in our buildings, and especially for, now Norfolk has kind of adopted my term of equity and opportunity students. But, we do have students that the in-person instruction research shows it works better for them. And so what I was advocating was for us to plan from day one for us to have that option available for working parents, for students who needed it, for students with disabilities, or students that just found that the online only option was not suitable for them. Right. And then I think something that we'll talk about a little bit later, that there is this significant divide in terms of access to technology and broadband. So I spent the last 20, 25 years of my career working to connect families to broadband. So I feel like I have a certain understanding of that issue. And so I don't want any child on the first day of school to not be able to access learning simply because of, where they happen to live or who their parents happen to be. We have to make sure that every child is excelling and has access to learning on day one, and that's always going to be my priority.
Well, certainly there was a compromise somewhere that could be, it was, I understand I think we all understand. I know you do. The health and safety of our students comes first. I mean,
Absolutely.
I don't think that was a issue or even a for or afterthought. But I think it should have. Maybe perhaps it could have been a midway point or something. Where I know that. For example, I've been a substitute in all most of the schools, and I've had programs, anti-bullying programs, and safe summer programs, and you've been to a lot of them and participated. So I know there's some kids that don't need to be at home. I mean, and for whatever reason, they can have a strange uncle or aunt or something. I don't, I'm just gonna be real with it.
Yes.
They don't need to be at home, and so we have to. You can't blanket. Some things just can't have a blanket policy to say everybody because I know you don't like the term at risk, but for me, just some of the students who are they may be at risk, for something that could happen or just like I said, it's just I've looked around the country as well, and there's some places that have mandatory virtual learning. Yes. However, they understand that this is not going to work no matter what you do. It's not going to work for this situation. So
no, I think that, so I agree with you. I didn't feel at the time that we were having the discussion that we really set aside a sufficient amount of time to delve into it. But, that's in the past.
Right.
But where we are today, I think we are going to find that options will be made available. You see right now in the newspaper, some of the other school divisions in the area are already talking about trying to bring students back in 2 weeks. I still hear from parents that feel that it's important that they have that opportunity. So right now, Norfolk has agreed to do virtual in the first 9 weeks. And so what I've been trying to do is outside of that school system environment, connect parents to learning pods, connect them to the Y, connect them to community organizations, Teams with a Purpose is putting together a program where they're working with middle school students and high school students. So I think what we can do right now, because I agree with you, as somebody who actually knocked on doors and does home visits, everybody's circumstances aren't the same.
Right.
And so I think there's this tendency in public education to look through things through the lens of our own circumstances. But I think it's my responsibility as a school board member or just being out in the community to try to take into consideration everybody's circumstance. And I think if we would find a way to reorientate the system to make sure that if you want to use the term at risk, I don't like it. If you want to use the term vulnerable, I don't like it, but we know what we're talking about.
Right.
If we take care of those students and those families, I think we'll take care of everybody else. What we have seen for the last 50 years, taking care of those who are already connected does not automatically mean that you're going to take care of those who are on the negative side of the equity equation. And I'm an advocate for us making sure that all students are served.
Okay. I think one of the arguments, I guess, I don't know, I don't want to say the far right, but the far right, socialization. I think that's a piece of it. It's the socialization piece where when kids interact in school and they develop by interacting with the socialization, and also just keeping that thought process and looking at how this what I like to. Seems like a virtual experiment almost. Where it's new territory, so everything is new. But one of the philosophies that I always kind of adhere to, maybe it's a scientific rule that every action has an opposite and equal reaction.
Absolutely.
And so I'm thinking, you have any thoughts on how that lack of socialization, and I think we'll see it play out, but just looking forward.
Well, so first let me talk about it from the far, as you mentioned, the far right. It's interesting. So I feel like I learned the principles of socialization from my grandmother. So, when all the cousins were over the house,
right?
Everybody wanted to go to Granny's house. She's the one that said, no, y'all come in here, sit at the table. You all going to talk to one another. Our ancestors understood, I believe, the benefit of engagement, I think others have learned from us and then have co-opted, co-opted that message. But I think we've already seen some of the challenges of what happens when we're isolated. So, as we've gone through this pandemic and we went through the closures, and I know I've been holed up in the house. I know you have been. We come out some. We've been involved in marches and things of that type. But not being able to do what we're doing right now, seeing each other, look in the eye, get that feel. I think our culture in particular, we deal with soul and spirit and being able to have that touchy-feeliness, even if it's not literally touching and feeling one another.
Right.
I think when we're isolated, when we're locked up, when we don't get sunlight, when we don't get exercise, when we aren't able to, run around the field, I think that does have an impact on our physical being and our spiritual being and our social being. So those who are advocating for socialization, I understand where they're coming from. You're someone who has done a lot of work for years preparing adults and young people to move into the workforce. So we know socialization is a 21st century work skill, being able to work with one another, collaborate with one another. So I am concerned about the socialization piece. Even though I'm someone who likes technology, I don't want to see children on screens just for hour after hour after hour after hour. So, as parents, we need to break that up. As community members, we need to break that up. But socialization is important because I believe that's how I think our democracy suffers when we're isolated from one another. And I think we are closer to living up to our ideals when we engage with one another.
I think I find that amazing. I know as a little kid running around these here parts, that we had a pecking order. I mean, you had the big boys, you had the little boys. You know what I mean? You couldn't cross lines. It's like, okay, well, you couldn't even get into a beef with somebody that's a smaller group than you, because somebody gonna come and check you.
That's right.
So we had our own little like, okay, this is the order of things, and I guess nowadays things have changed a lot with different social skills that are coming along, but I couldn't imagine. I mean, being but we didn't have computers at all, so
I mean, I tell people all the time that technology can. It's like water. It can refresh you, or it can drown you. And so we have to be wise in our use of it. So I love the fact that our children have access to the technology that they do. I think they are the most skilled, most knowledgeable, most brilliant generation we've ever had, and I think technology plays a role in that. But the adult, the community, the family also plays a role in trying to make sure that we use the technology for good, that we use it responsibly, and in this case, that we use it for learning.
Right. Well, I'm going to change up a little bit, a little change up pitch here.
That's fine.
And I know the powers that be in this great metropolis, and I'm being funny, but I do love my city. I think people can say anything about me, but nobody can say, "Hey, that boy don't love Norfolk." Yes. I mean, that's not going to happen. But I do see that the city gentrification is underway again. From my perch, from where I see it at, it's underway again with the tearing down of the housing projects. Now that's a whole nother show, but I worry about not just the displacement of families. Because even in the projects, it's probably not the ideal living conditions. So I do want people to want to strive and do better. But tying that in with the education piece, with that whole St. Paul's corridor, I think like a total of like 700 or something total units that are going to be when you.
Well, there's
Calvert.
Let's see if I can remember correctly. So I spent time on the housing authority. So I think in Tidewater Park it's 616 units. I think. Young Terrace has 700 and so, and then Calvert probably has another 350, 375 units. Ironically, as I tend to do, I actually was rereading the Choice Neighborhood Grant application that the Housing Authority and the city submitted. I was rereading it earlier today, and it reminded me yet again that in each of those communities, the majority of residents there are under the age of 18.
Really?
Yeah, so at one time, I remember in the 2000 census, there was an article that came out in the paper that said that this census tract, this area where the public housing communities are, was the only census tract in the Commonwealth of Virginia where there were more youth than adults. Still is the case. So, I appreciate your use of the word gentrification. I think it's still wholesale Negro removal.
That's unfiltered.
Okay, yeah, unfiltered, right? When my brother and I started mailing that, we used to say the uncut black experience. So you're being unfiltered, I'm gonna be a little uncut.
That's right.
I think it's straight up Negro removal. There is a connection, I believe, between housing policy and school policy. It has been Norfolk's history,
Right.
especially since 1954 and a little bit earlier. So we have we've had historically racially segregated neighborhoods. We've had circumstances like urban renewal or public housing redevelopment or whatever terminology that folks want to use on. And like you, I want everybody to have the opportunity to live in a healthy neighborhood of choice. However, what the system has done is a combination of neglect. So first we segregate. So the Tidewater, Young, and Calvert were created as public housing for Negroes.
Right.
At the time, because Norfolk had slums and a lot of cities had slums, it was working families, it was families, and it was a step up because it was a better environment.
Right.
But through the pattern, the Norfolk pattern that I think I have seen in cities all around this country, we segregate, we concentrate, we isolate, we neglect, then we go and ask for money. Give me a grant so I can then manage the hell that I've created,
Right.
so that I can get paid to live somewhere else. And then I'm going to come and demolish, and then I'm going to move the families to other isolated, segregated areas, which impacts their quality of life,
Right.
impacts their wealth, impacts their health, impacts their access to education. So I'm very, very, very disappointed that in 2020, we are still following, our generation
Right.
is following the same model that was established back in the 1950s with the specific intent of maintaining school segregation by doing it through housing policies and practices. So we talked a little bit earlier about socialization. All the data tells us, if you look at crime data, education data, health data, mixed income neighborhoods are good. Racially diverse neighborhoods are good as well. And so to me, it's really unconscionable to just allow families to live in substandard conditions and then come and show families pretty pictures and say, well, wouldn't you like to live here? And everybody says, yes, I would.
They can't afford it.
But then when it comes time for the opportunity to come back, there's barrier after barrier after barrier. And I'll say one other comment, and I'll yield. I still remember like it was yesterday when I was still on the Housing Authority Board, and we went to Moton Circle. And we promised the families, oh, hey, if you just let us bulldoze Moton Circle, we're going to request a Hope 6 grant, and then we're going to let you all come back. And we bulldozed Moton Circle, and that was in 2008 maybe. And if you go out to Moton Circle today, in 2020, it's still barren.
It's still burned.
Nothing has been built back.
Right.
And if you ask people where are those families today, I guarantee you folks don't know. And so it's that level of not just gentrification, but as we're, walking in the streets and people are protesting today, talking about equity and equal opportunity and treatment not being second class,
Right.
the words and the actions have to match.
Well, it troubles me because, like we just talked about your I said lone dissenting voice. I know it sounded ominous, but the same way with Paul Riddick on City Council, and I know this thing was a done deal, and I think the last time that it came before the school board was two meetings ago, and I guess he wanted further clarification. City Council.
Okay.
I just said school board. City
Right.
Council. He wanted further clarification, and it troubles me. It troubles me to see when I look at the City Council meetings virtually. It just troubles me is that there's not a greater sense of responsibility towards the community, and I don't know any other way to say it. I just I just feel like even I think like now they just hired a place called Urban Strategies. They have the grant supposed to be easing in the transition piece. But I don't know. I'm not really happy with what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I'm not either. And I don't mean to say this to separate myself from Councilman Riddick, but I don't want to dissent just for the sake of dissent. I want to. If I'm going to dissent, it's
Right.
because I feel like I have a plan of action, and I'm going to support that plan of action. Like I said, even in my case, once the decision's made, I'm going to go out and work and make things as best as I can. But personally, I would like to see more. I don't want to just see dissent just for the sake of dissent.
Well, I get that, but when I don't.
That's no shade. That's just.
When I was watching the meeting, I didn't actually get that point. I was like, something's rotten in Denmark, and just looking at it, because so many times, everything is affirmative. It's like 100%. And they call it one Norfolk, and they run through the meeting. And I just it can't just be that. You just can't govern like that. That's a whole nother show.
I agree with you. I agree.
But since we're on talking about resources, let's talk about it. The equal distribution of resources. I know we had another school board member up here, and I was talking about my niece who went to Norview, who was doing her homework. I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm doing my homework." She was on her phone, and like I said, that's the phone that I got her. I was proud of her. "What are you doing?" She's doing the homework, and she's a junior at Norview, and I'm thinking, y'all don't have a Chromebook? Because she has two smaller, sister and brother. And I was like, well, I want to know, I think that's something that has to be monitored. The
Absolutely.
equal distribution. I don't want to see people at W.H. Taylor, if we all, paying taxes and, I don't want to see them have resources and brand new Chromebooks. Then when we look at Richard Bolin, it's a different picture, and it's been that way. So it might be even revolutionary, unfortunately. But I need you to watch that, Rodney.
Well, I'll take it a step further. You're talking about the equal distribution of resources. I'm talking about the equitable distribution of resources. The fact is that there are students and families in parts of our town that should receive more. Because of if nothing else, because of some of these systemic issues that we've been talking about. So I want every child to have a Chromebook or device. I believe it's the responsibility of the school system to provide that device. I've been advocating or saying to families, if you go get a device. Okay, I don't like the idea of simply me coming to you and say, "Hey, Bob, do you need a device?"
Right.
And then you have to. How do you know the answer? Because unless you know what the software programs are, unless you have all this background information, if you base your decision off of what you have in your household, if you have anything, but if you base it off of what's in your household. But if you don't know if what you have in your household actually is going to work for your child or your grandchild or for your niece, how can you make an informed decision? So I believe the position of the school system should be, especially in this virtual environment, to make sure that every child, I don't care where your background is, has access to devices that we know that if there is a technical support issue, that the school system can monitor and support and provide assistance. If I'm using my Mac in my house and my daughter's using it and there's a problem, and then she calls up the help desk and they say, oh, well, we don't have the capacity to access your personal device, that's a problem.
Right.
But if she has the school system's issued device, then there should be no reason that the help desk or the teacher or whoever wouldn't be able to support her learning because she would have what the school system has issued.
Right.
So I'm encouraging every family to take the opportunity to call up the school system and request a Chromebook, request a hotspot, request the software, anything that is available that the school system has and says is needed for your child to be successful, go get it.
So do you think the teachers will be, I guess, with the virtual training, will they say, or I guess what they ask, well, who has a Chromebook in the class? Or will they be able to, well, they probably can't do it without them having one at first. So how do they?
Well, my understanding is there have been some surveys that have been done, but now that we are a few days at the time that we're doing this podcast, that we're a few days out from school starting, we're going to know September the 8th who has what. But leading up to September 8th, I'm saying that you and I, we're on social media, we're on the computer, we're talking to folks in the community. I mean, literally, people think I make this stuff up, but I get multiple calls a day from families. I had multiple calls today from families that said, hey, Rodney, what is Canvas? How do I connect to Canvas? Do I need a password for that? And then I'm trying to help them navigate the website or directing them who they need to contact at the school to get that information. But under typical circumstances, you and I know a lot of times, many of us don't really tune in until the first day of school.
The first day of school.
And I don't want it to be the case that we find large numbers of children who already may be disconnected to, we go 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks to find out that they don't have the capacity and the capability to do their online learning. We need to know today.
Well, Rodney, we're just about out of time, but before we go, you just received an award recently. I cut on my social media, and I was like, look at Rodney up there with the good suit on and everything. So tell us about this award. You're always doing great things. What was this about?
Well, it actually surprised me because I didn't know I was receiving it. So some people, and I'm not sure I even know to this day who submitted my name, but Norfolk Public Schools is a part of the Council of Urban Boards of Education. So it's part of the National School Board Association. And so they have a Lifetime Achievement Award that is named after the great Benjamin Mays.
Okay.
And so I'm the recipient, this year's recipient of a Lifetime Achievement Award named in honor of Benjamin Mays, which even as I'm talking to you about it right now, I'm not sure I deserve such a thing.
That's a national honor.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. But to receive anything, Benjamin Mays, Howard Thurman, Dr. King, these folks were leaders and godfathers of the civil rights movement and more. Benjamin Mays, of course, who used to also lead Morehouse, to even be mentioned in his name is an honor in and of itself. So I am thankful for it. Not sure I deserve it, but I appreciate those who felt that I was worthy and those who felt I was worthy to receive it.
Well, you've been on the battlefield a while, Rodney. So, I mean, just count your blessings, and, I'm happy for you to receive it. I don't think, I don't know who the recipients is, but, the past recipients, but I'm sure it's well-deserved. Like I said, I've had a lot of programs in the school, and I was like, that's my go-to. I was like, always been able to count on Rodney. So we're going to wrap the show up. I want to say thank you for coming out, Rodney. We appreciate you coming out. We'll catch you next time on Unfiltered with Bob Z, where we're going to be unfiltered.